Mate, Missile, today I want to have a talk about our chances in the pool, but I also want to talk about, from your perspective, it must be a big thing when you're over there, holding your focus, holding your nerve amongst everything, all the excitement, new city, opening ceremonies, the whole box and dice. But firstly, the enhanced games.
Yes.
Ridley Scott producing the special $1 million on the table if you break the 50 metres world record. How you going? How you tracking?
Mate, it's going really good. To be honest, if I could sum it up, I'm the happiest I've been in 5 years.
Being back in the pool.
Being back in the pool, doing what I feel like I was born to do. People always say to me, oh, sports, it's so hard, there's so much pressure, there's expectation, it's physically quite daunting to be a professional athlete. I think it's the easiest job in the world. I now wake up of a morning and I have two choices. Will this thing make me faster or will it not? And I go the faster route every day. And it's really simplified my life, it's made me happier. And just that being able to express myself in the pool like I did my whole career, couldn't be happier.
How close are you to the world record over the 50?
I reckon I'd be within a second now, with a year to go.
Okay, in that case, do you ever think, there must be going through your mind saying, I give it up too quick? I mean...
You know, the hardest thing when I initially retired, and it wasn't just for, like, performance-wise, I was still making the Australian teams, I was still doing my thing. It was the culmination of, you're not only a professional swimmer, I was swimming from the time I was, 11, 12 years of age, a lot of hours, and I was just tired, and I'd had enough of the sport and the scene, the environment. I was tired of the environment. And the hardest part is watching the Olympic trials or the Olympics or the Commonwealth Games and just going, could I, should I, have I wasted a part of my career? But then also saying, at times I was thinking, it's a very selfish lifestyle, and, getting along in my life and having a partner and wanting to spend more time with her and friends, I felt selfish continuing to swim. But now, with this opportunity, it's almost selfless in that I can set up my future family for the rest of their lives with this one opportunity.
Well, I mean, this is very different to when you first competed at London, because this time around, we're talking about 5 or 6 different swimmers, and the attention has spread compared to when you were there. Everyone was focusing on you. For the individual, do you think for them, Ariane and Cam and that, do you think it spreads the pressure?
I think it's a massive bonus for this team. When we've seen our strongest Australian swim teams, we're spreading the medals across quite a few people. So if you look back to Sydney 2000, you had Clem, Hackett, Thorpe, Susie O'Neill, Jeff Hugel. There was all these people, and Ian Thorpe missed a gold in the 200 freestyle, but we kind of didn't think about it too much because, oh, boom, then Michael Klim's up the next day, or there's Susie O'Neill. Our attention shifted quickly, and there didn't seem to be a huge spotlight on any one person. If I could compare it to an event, I'd say look at Kathy Freeman in the athletics in Sydney. Oh, yeah. She was our only chance for gold in that whole athletics competition, and therefore the focus of the nation narrowed right in on her. For whatever reason, that the cycles and swings of high performance, that London Olympics, only one medal, gold medal was predicted. Well, 2 gold medals, and that was me in the 100 freestyle and me in the 4x1 free. So again, that attention really narrowed. And to be honest, Matty, I wouldn't have it any other way. I loved that build up to those games. It set me up for the rest of my career. But you certainly feel the weight of expectation and of a nation that has a proud history in swimming that expects gold, and when you're the only one that's expected to get gold, that intensifies the experience.
I want to ask you about that, because you were in numerous events. That must be problematic. When you look back at that Olympics, do you wish that maybe you were just in the 100 metres free or the 50 metres compared to competing in 3 or 4 different events?
There was one mistake we made, and I'm pretty confident I've never spoken about this on camera before. So we made a mistake at that Olympics, myself, my team, and the Australian swim team as a whole. So day one, we had the 4x100 freestyle relay, which was, that was a shot at gold. And I was coming off the back of winning gold at the World Champs. I led the relay team at the World Champs, and we'd won gold in that as well. And the feeling around the team was, I was only 20 years of age. They were saying, first Olympics, we need to get a swim under his belt. we're going to swim him in the heats and then back him up again in the finals. So often you sort of rest your best swimmers for the finals, and they said, oh, let's blow the cobwebs out and swim you in the heats. The way these heats panned out, we swam a few of our weaker swimmers in the heats, and then I was sort of anchoring the team to get us into the finals. I'm standing there in the morning in the heats, all sweet, this is our event, and suddenly we're in the lane next to America. And it comes to the third swimmer dives in, and he's coming back on the second 50. I'm anchoring the team. Suddenly we're third in our heat. And I'm looking around, I'm going, if we don't win this heat, we won't get the middle lane for the final. We might not have the best chance at winning it.
So you had to open out.
So I'm next to Jason Lazac, who did the famous last leg for America to beat France in Beijing, and he's on the blocks next to me. I haven't raced him before, so that's, it's a big moment. But I'm going, all right, well, now I need to haul ass. We need to win this heat because we want the middle lane tonight. So I drop a full bore swim in that heat and blew the cobwebs out, but also blew myself out a bit and felt quite fatigued for the rest of that day. And in hindsight, we should have just swum one of the other swimmers in the heats, rested me up for the final, and then come out and done my thing that night, the same as what had been done the previous year in Shanghai when we won the world champs.
Let's give people an insight on what the athlete's going to deal with. And as I said before, the preparation, you win and lose on preparation and focus, but it must be so hard, so exciting, fulfilling a lifelong dream. You're at a new city, all the other athletes. You arrive in London and you go into the Olympic Village. What does the Olympic Village look like?
It's like a zoo. It's literally a zoo. So first of all, you walk past a 7-foot tall girl, and I've never seen a girl taller than me in my life. You go, holy shit. And then you walk past a 180 kilo shot putter. And then you walk past a 5'2" gymnast with arms the size of your head. And you're just going, there's so many distractions, and that's just the physical aspect of it. The athletes is amazing. Then you walk into the food hall and you see a bit of a scrum of people and you go, oh wow, that's LeBron James over there. That's Roger Federer over there. It's all the distractions that you're not used to. And then what really settles in quite fast is this is not the ideal environment for peak performance. So you get to your room and you realize, oh, I'm on a single bed. The Olympics now, they're on a cardboard bed. This is the no sex bed.
That's on cardboard beds.
Cardboard bed. So if a second person lies on the bed, straight through.
Some people will say where there's a will, there's a way.
Particularly for professional athletes. You got the most athletic people in the world. Do you think they can't find a way around that? But yeah, that quickly settles in for you that, oh, this is, in all my past meets, I'm going 5-star hotels, private buses, the best food, like everything is on a platter for you. Then you get to the Olympic Games and go, ooh, this is suboptimal, I think is the phrase. I'm hanging from my mid-shin over the bed. I'm walking a kilometre to the food hall. I don't walk in my day-to-day life. I just swim, and then there's all these factors that kind of build up, and you're a little bit unsure, which is why for so many athletes, their best Olympics is their second one.
Yeah, gotcha.
So Michael Phelps was a 15-year-old in Sydney. We never heard of him. And then all of a sudden he comes out and he comes across our radar and says, I want to win 8 gold medals in Athens. And we go, who the hell is that? But he's been to the Olympics, he's experienced it, he understands it, nothing shocks him. He comes out in Athens, he smashes it by his 3rd Olympics, he then wins the 8 golds. So for our swimmers that are going over there, and that's why Emma McKean was so good in Tokyo, because it was her 2nd Olympics. She'd been to Rio, she understood it, and then she excelled. So for those first-time Olympians in Paris, it's almost as much about dealing with the distractions and dealing with the change in environment as it is the swim itself. Because once you get in the pool, it is essentially another race, but the lead-up is anything but normal.
You just said before, you're looking across and there might be Roger Federer or LeBron James. I mean, these people, they're just complete legends of their sports, they're heroes. Do they get left alone? Like, what is the dynamic?
Yeah, I guess it depends. And often Australians are really good. So like a Roger Federer might find solace in coming and sitting at the Australian table because he'll be left alone. Because for the most part, I would say the Australian Olympic team aren't what I like to call tourists. because there's a lot of tourists in the Olympic Village. Their lifelong dream was to go to the Olympics. It's not necessarily to win an Olympic medal, it's not to win gold, it was to get to the Olympics. And they had to find a sport or an outlet where they could get to the Olympic Games. Once they're there, it's photos, it's chocolate bars, it's nightclubs, it's
croquet.
Free Maccas.
The fences, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there is tourists. There's a lot of tourists in the village, and so Roger Federer or Nadal might find solace in coming to the Australian table and sitting with us because we'll just chat to him and not ask for photos and hassle him. But what it can also give you is a little bit of imposter syndrome, because you start looking at some of these athletes and you think, you know, they're coming here as favourites to win. I'm also here. I'm here with Roger Federer, and my country expects me to do the same as Roger Federer. And you start going, like, as a 20-year-old guy, like, am I on the same level as a Roger Federer?
Gotcha. Yeah.
So that's a really interesting aspect of it as well. And then the ones that do not get left alone is the dream team.
Yeah, right.
Above and beyond the tennis players, the Usain Bolts, the Michael Phelps, the NBA dream team walks in there, the American dream team walks in there, and people flock to them. And they stand out like dog's balls as well, because they're so tall.
Of course. Yeah. It's funny you say that about not being intimidated by other athletes. I read a story about 88 Seoul, and some athletes said that Edwin Moses walked into the food hall, you know, the great 400-metre hurdler, and everyone just went, oh, and he walked like just gliding across the ground, and everyone just went over, and he got his soup bowl, filled the soup, walked back. Grace sat down, everyone's going, oh my God, and then went to eat his soup and spilled it all over himself. And they went, actually, he is human. Opening ceremony for athletes. It must be strange, all that standing on your feet, particularly for the sprinters. Were you sampled? Do they want to be there, I suppose? So
as swimmers, it's pretty much taken out of our hands. We don't participate in the opening ceremony. Couple of reasons. Firstly, we're not land animals, so all that time on the feet is terrible. But the second thing is we start competing that first day. So night of the opening ceremony, we're sitting back in the village knowing that we're racing tomorrow. There's fireworks, there's people running around, yipping and yahooing and all that sort of jazz. So for us, we don't do it. It's an interesting decision for athletes, right? So depending on where the village is, for example, in London, the stadium was within walking distance of the village. So, you know, they walk probably 2 to 3K to the stadium. They stand there for a couple of hours behind the scenes while all the pomp and pageantry is going on. Then they walk them out. They lap the oval. They then stand in the middle while all the other countries come out. They then walk home. By the time all this is said and done, they're probably getting home around 1 a.m. at night. Wow, so it's a really interesting decision to make for other athletes, to the point where, you know, I think if you're serious about winning gold medals, that opening ceremony is, unless you're back end of that second week, I wouldn't be recommending it to first-time athletes.
Okay, closing ceremony, a lot more fun?
A lot of fun. The closing ceremony is a lot of fun. A couple of drinks beforehand, if you can find them. I think a bunch of our swimmers went to the casino before the London closing ceremony, so we got charged up for it. And then once you're out in the middle of the field, it's a free-for-all. Yeah. So you mix with all the other countries and athletes and all that sort of stuff. And for the closing ceremony in London, we had Spice Girls and all these iconic, I think David Beckham came out and paraded around, like all these iconic British people. And then you go back to the village, and that's probably the biggest party of the whole Olympics, because every athlete's finished competing and you can all go at the same time. And usually each country will bring in some sort of alcohol themed with their own country. So for example, the Australians will bring in, I don't know, Tui's or VB or whatever. The Americans will bring in like a Budweiser, something. And then you mix, so like for us, we would go to, I think we spent a lot of time at the German building, and then, and we had an infamous, in London, we had an infamous, it was Rio, we had an infamous boat race. So the 10 best drinkers from each country to go head to head. And so one person sculls, and then you go down, and you got the anchor.
Oh, don't worry, I know what a boat race is.
And as one of the best gold medals of the whole meet, I reckon, as an Australian team, we got to the final against Great Britain. and beat them in the ultimate boat race.
Oh, how good.
Yeah.
Before we get off London, and look, if I just go back a little bit, the 100 metres, silver by 1/100th of a second. James, how did you deal with that night? What was your emotions when you laid down in bed that night?
Yeah, well, for a starter, it was sleepless. I didn't get a wink of sleep. I think I was trying to digest how it was going to be received back home. I had only ever envisaged winning that race, and that's what you have to do as an athlete. I think if you go into a meet thinking about coming second and how that will be received, then you've already lost. So I don't only ever envisaged or visualized winning, and I was trying to understand how that would be received back home. Again, that's probably one of the problems with youth, is that you're acutely aware of other people's reactions.
Absolutely, yeah.
But as you get older, you become really comfortable in your own skin and you care less about what people think. But I was so worried about what people would be thinking. I think the first emotion was embarrassment. I really do. And it took me a good 6 to 9 months to get over that night. It definitely rattled me, and I think it was something that it puts you in good stead for life. But geez, it's a hard lesson to learn as a 20-year-old on an international stage, and more prominently, back here with 20 million people watching it live on TV.
All right, let's talk about Rio. You did an amazing job to just qualify for Rio, coming off shoulder reconstruction.
Yeah. And
it was just in the 4x100 relay.
Yeah.
So did that allow you to enjoy Rio a lot more?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. I think by the time I got to Rio, so Rio was bittersweet because post London, we go out and just go on this streak of winning everything, and go for almost like 2 years without losing a race. And I'm going, beautiful. I'm back on track. I'll go to Rio. I'll win the gold, right the wrongs, and life is good. And then just under a year out from Rio, I have to get a shoulder reconstruction, and it kind of flips the whole thing on its head. And so then the story goes from winning in Rio to getting to Rio, which was a really weird place for me. And then I go into the next Olympics, and I'm watching some of these other athletes who are, the faces of that Olympics, going, like, this should be me, this was me. And it was a really weird feeling. And I think people were a little bit awkward around me because of it, because they were like, oh, like, we're kind of the faces of it, but you're like, I don't know, it was a weird environment. But then once the swimming was said and done, like we won a bronze medal in the relay, which was great. And then I think because I was a little bit older on the team and I'd been around those guys, once the second week came there, everyone went, all right, what's James doing? Where are we going? What's James organising?
Okay. You're the most important job, yeah.
I became the focal point of that second week, which, it was a lot of fun.
Reports were out of London, it wasn't a really tight-knit team. The camaraderie wasn't that great. How was Rio? London's a funny one. I would say there was pockets of tight-knit people within the team in London. And then there was people that were warring during London, both privately and publicly, leading into that London Olympics, which I think was probably the biggest upset in the team. And the funny thing was it wasn't on the men's side of the team. So they came back and they said, oh, the men, they had the still knock sting, they were toxic, they did this, they did that. People were talking about bullying, which was the catchphrase of the time. Bullying was a big buzzword. And we're going, mate, that second week, we had the best week of our lives together. We're all pretty buddied up. Yeah.
But there was warring factions of that team who couldn't even be in the same dining room together. And it wasn't our side. So we were all sitting there going, what is going on? It was really confusing. By the time Rio came around, we had dealt with the backlash of London, the backlash of the still knock sting. Like, everyone was like really sensitive to, we've got to create this image of the Australian swim team, and everyone was so obsessed with like, how are we presenting, how are we perceived? We're having meetings about like, don't swear in the team rooms and stuff like that. It became this really PC environment that was quite, I don't know, it was a little bit uncomfortable at times, but as athletes, we all got along with each other really well. But it just felt like we had to be this really polished, well-spoken, well-represented team that just couldn't be themselves, it felt like at times.
Righto, James, let's talk about Paris. Now, the Australian swim team, the arch enemy always are the Americans, the USA swim team. We've had some ding-dong battles against them.
Yeah.
Recently, we had a Palooka in the media came out and he slammed, not a swimmer by the way, come out and slammed the American side, in particular their living legend, Michael Phelps. Now, from an Australian swimmer's perspective, they must be filthy.
I can tell you from within the inner sanctum, they're furious about it. America doesn't need more motivation heading into the Olympics, but above and beyond that, Matty, it's disrespectful. You can imagine if we were sitting back here in Australia and an American pundit off a talk show just absolutely ripped into Ian Thorpe, called him a tosser, said that he needs to lay off the bongs, said that he won't be watching the swimming, he'll be watching SpongeBob SquarePants, said that he presents terribly, has a bad haircut, looks like a dead shit basically. We would be incensed by that. And Americans don't know who Carl Stefanovic is. They don't know what Tony's saying it in. They don't understand the Today Show. They've never heard of Carl Stefanovic in their life. All they know is this guy on Australian television has absolutely ripped in to a sporting icon, to a guy that I believe is the greatest athlete of all time. And now I'm slightly biased because I come from swimming, but there's an argument to be made that he is the greatest athlete of all time. He's the greatest Olympian of all time. I'm all for creating a stir and I'm all for banter between athletes when it's the athlete that then has to go and back it up. So for example, in 2012, I had the famous line, brace yourselves. But guess who then has to go and back that up? I do. I'm the one that's standing behind those words. To come from the sidelines, to come from the rafters and shoot down an icon of the country, an icon of the sport, an icon of the Olympics, it just felt disrespectful. And the manner it was done, to call him a tosser, that's verbatim. Called him a tosser. That's just not how you treat sporting greats. It's not how you treat people in general, but certainly it's not how you treat a legend of the Olympics.
What do you think? People are saying that this is going to be some sort of Special Olympics Paris. What do you think, Maggie?
I think this is our strongest ever swim team. I think this is the biggest ever head-to-head battle between the United States and Australia. And I'm going to say this will be our most successful Olympics from a swimming perspective in history.
Who's going to be our star?
I've got a few to pick from this time. I change each time I get asked a question. I'm going to back myself in and I'm going to say Molly O'Callaghan. I'm going to say she's going to win 5 gold medals at this Olympic Games.
Wow. Well, Maggie, I've enjoyed that today. There's good news and bad news. The good news is that we are rooming together. The bad news is we're rooming together. I look forward to it, Maggie. Thanks, mate.